What are the prospects of resolving, or very at least de-escalating, this historical, long-running disagreement between Japan and South Korea?
Right now, I think the political leaders on both sides are ignoring the caution flags as related to the problems in the economic relationship. And they still see a lot of political benefit domestically on both sides to continuing down this road. This is really the first time that the economic component of the relationship, which has normally been the glue supporting political cooperation between South Korea and Japan, has become a solvent. And that should be a great concern. I think it really has political and strategic ramifications for both sides as well as for the United States.
Yeah, that's a nice analogy, a solvent. So in terms of what looks like to be a war of attrition right now economically, which side's going to suffer the most, Japan or South Korea?
Well, I think that the South Koreans have immediate concerns about supply, and I don't know whether Samsung and other semiconductor producers are going to find a satisfactory solution. Downstream, it means that any products that use South Korean semiconductor components are going to see potential problems. And the South Koreans, I think, have been threatening consequences. They're hoping that Japan will find that this backfires on them. But I think the concern is that they haven't yet reached the limit where that will drive both leaders back to talking to each other as a way of bounding this problem.
And Scott, we know that Japan-South Korea relations really move in waves where tensions spike for a period of time. But this distrust has been building for quite a while, right? How much has this to do with Prime Minister Abe's relationship with the former president of South Korea?
Well, I think you've put your finger on one of the critical origins of this, and that is that Moon, the South Korean current president, walked away from the Comfort Woman agreement that was made between Prime Minister Abe and his predecessor, Park Geun-hye. But of course, her agreement was really discredited in South Korea by her subsequent impeachment. And as a result, the relationship with Japan has got caught in South Korean domestic politics in new and unprecedented ways.
I was going to ask because President Moon Jae-in, when he took office, he said that he wouldn't let historical issues get in the way of progress on special relations. So what happened here?
Well, that's right. The Moon administration began with a dual-track policy, placing history in one track and future relations in the other. But I don't think that the Moon administration has handled their really non-rejection of the Comfort Woman agreement very well. And there's the issue of forced labor that emerged in the South Korean Supreme Court that has really added to the complexity and actually deepened the domestic component of the issue as a problem between South Korea and Japan.
In a practical sense, South Korea, needs a number of resources for its technology industry. If it's not able to talk to Japan, does this open the door to other suppliers, potentially driving South Korea into the arms of China economically?
I think that the semiconductor manufacturers are looking at China, they're looking at Russia, they're looking at whatever other alternatives are available. But one of the problems is that there's no trusted supplier outside of Japan. That's one reason why Japan has had a virtual monopoly on supply of some of these chemicals and elements that are necessary for semiconductor manufacturing in South Korea.
Would it be in the U.S. interest to inject itself into this situation, try and broker some sort of agreement between, two of its closest allies in East Asia?
Yes, the United States has an interest in facilitating and in bounding this conflict between South Korea and Japan. It does not have an interest in putting itself in between two allies. And I think that the Trump administration has been a little bit late to the game in terms of addressing this downturn as we have seen it evolve. But now we have an assistant secretary who is out there, Assistant Secretary Stilwell, who has had conversations with the Japanese and the South Koreans. I understand that a National Security Council senior official is also out there. But really the key for the United States is to figure out how to whisper into the ear of each side rather than placing itself in the middle.
But will it do that, especially with this administration?
I think that they will try, and we'll have to wait and see whether or not they find the correct formula for bounding this or not. They're late to the game, and they really, I think, have suffered from a kind of vacuum at senior levels in the State Department prior to Assistant Secretary Stilwell's confirmation. And so the question is whether they can catch up and he can get support and find a method by which to bound the rising tensions between the two sides and kind of stabilize the environment for a positive South Korea-Japan relationship.